Sometimes it feels like everything is frozen in time, not in the literal, physical sense, but in the way life keeps offering you chapters you never signed up to read. And yet, somehow, you keep moving forward anyway. And whether you've noticed it consciously or not, something unseen has been waiting for this exact point in your story. The moment you finally sit still long enough for a deeper truth to reach you. There is a reason these words are grazing your heart right now. Not by coincidence, not by randomness, but because you've arrived at a place where the universe can finally reach you, in a language you're open enough and worn out enough to absorb. You spent so many years trying to shape yourself into someone you assumed you had to be, just to stay afloat. And in doing that, you misplaced something holy. You were never meant to carry all of this weight by yourself. Pause. Take a breath. Not the shallow, half-held breaths you've been surviving on for months, but the one your soul has been pleading for you to remember. Because the truth is, the universe has been whispering to you for a long time now. Through the heaviness pressing on your chest, through the nights your thoughts refused to silence themselves, through the moments you felt emotionally unplugged, directionless, unsure if you were even moving toward anything real. You weren't failing. You were finally slowing down enough to feel. And that is where every transformation truly starts. There's something you need to grasp. Something that may pinch at first, but will soften everything afterward. You have outgrown the identity you're still trying to live inside of. That's why the things that once felt logical now feel tangled. Why certain environments feel too tight. Why you don't feel completely present in the life you once built with certainty. It's not because you're broken. It's because you're evolving. You are standing at the cliff between who you were and who you are stepping into. And every part of the universe has been waiting for you to reach this border, so it could finally hand you the next piece of your awakening. This is one of those emotional summits you will recognize in hindsight. Because here's the truth most souls don't hear at the right time. You are not lost. You are being re-anchored. What feels like emptiness is actually space being cleared. What feels like confusion is your inner compass pulling you away from what no longer fits you. What feels like stagnation is the universe holding you steady until you are strong enough to walk forward differently. You don't need to draft the full map right now. You don't need to decode every internal shift in real time. You don't need to force clarity. Your only assignment in this season is to stay receptive. There comes a moment in every soul's evolution where the road ahead seems to vanish. Not because there is no road, but because you're not meant to walk the next phase with the same vision you used before. You're stepping into that moment now. And even though it may feel like life is slowing down, or crumbling, or drifting, what is actually happening is deeper than the eye can catch. Your foundation is being reset. The universe is rearranging everything underneath the surface, so your next chapter can actually carry the size of the person you're becoming. You prayed for change. You begged quietly for a sign. You whispered for guidance in the silence when no one else was watching. Those prayers were not dismissed. They were stored. Every single one of them. What you are hearing right now, it is part of the reply. There is another truth you've tiptoed around. Not because you doubted it, but because you never felt prepared to claim it. You are needed. Not in some distant, artistic, poetic way, but right here, in this lifetime. You carry something rare. Wisdom, compassion, grit, resilience, insight, depth that was forged in every moment you thought you wouldn't survive. Your story is not insignificant. Your heart is not an accident. Your presence is not a coincidence. You came here to grow, to awaken, to expand, to rise in ways your younger self could never have imagined. And right now, in this very season, the universe is preparing you for the phase where life begins to align in ways you once thought were unreachable for someone like you. You may not feel ready. You may not feel strong. You may not feel certain. But readiness is not a sensation. It is not something you suddenly feel in your body, like a spark, or hear in your mind like a voice giving instructions. Readiness is a threshold, a quiet moment like this, when something in you leans forward before logic forms around it, before your brain even catches the emotional memo. It is the moment your soul steps ahead of your understanding and says, "Yes, I will walk, even if I cannot yet see the road." And the universe has been waiting for that lean. Not the dramatic leap, not the heroic declaration shouted into the sky, not the perfectly planned breakthrough, just the lean, just the subtle internal shift that says you are no longer clinging to the shore of your old identity, that you are no longer negotiating with a life you have already mentally outgrown. Because your next chapter doesn't demand flawlessness. It doesn't demand full comprehension or a 10-step plan or emotional certainty. It doesn't demand the bold confidence you see in motivational montages. It only asks for willingness. Willingness is the real key, the underrated muscle of transformation. The willingness to loosen your grip on what you've been white-knuckling through for too long. The willingness to soften the walls you once built to stay safe. The willingness to trust a future that has not yet revealed its face. For years, you have been holding life too tightly. Relationships, goals, expectations, outcomes, identities, timelines, squeezing them like they were lifeboats, even when they were slowly becoming cages. You thought gripping harder meant surviving better, but survival isn't always strengthened by force. Sometimes survival shifts into something wiser: release. That release feels terrifying at first, because letting go of what once kept you functional can feel like letting go of yourself. You mistake detachment for disintegration. You confuse silence for loss. You interpret numbness as a sign of failure, when it is often a sign of exhaustion. And exhaustion is the first honest conversation you've had with yourself in a long time. The willingness to soften where you once hardened is not weakness. It is flexibility. The willingness to trust what you can't fully see yet is not delusion. It is intuition finally stretching its legs after being ignored for too long. And the willingness to be guided, not rushed, not shoved, not dragged by pressure, is not surrendering your power. It is reclaiming it. Guidance is different from force. Force is frantic. Guidance is patient. Force says, push harder. Guidance says, walk softer, but keep walking. Force demands proof. Guidance offers direction without revealing the whole blueprint. Force leaves you drained. Guidance meets you where you are and moves at a pace your spirit can finally metabolize. And you need to hear this clearly. God has not turned away from you. The universe has not forgotten your name. Your path has not evaporated into nothingness. You are not stranded. You are not being punished with stagnation. You are being paused into alignment. You are simply standing at the gateway of becoming. Not the glamorous kind of becoming that comes with applause or clarity or dramatic before-after reels, but the sacred kind, where the old self loosens its shape, unravels gently at the seams, and a truer self begins forming underneath, like a second heartbeat growing quietly behind the ribs of your old identity. The universe has been waiting for the moment you'd finally pause long enough to notice. The door was never locked. You were. You locked it with fear disguised as responsibility. You bolted it with people-pleasing dressed as love. You sealed it with perfectionism masquerading as ambition. You stood outside your own next chapter, convinced you weren't enough to enter it. But the door? It was always unlocked, always open, always whispering, you can come in now. Now listen closely, because this is the truth that will ignite the shift you've been craving. Your life is not meant to circle back to what it once was. It is not meant to return to the shape you once squeezed into, to be accepted. It is not meant to reboot into old excitement built on borrowed dreams. Your life is meant to expand into what it has never yet been, into the untested, unmeasured, unperformed, unfiltered, unmasked version of you. The emotions you are walking through right now, the quiet sense of an ending, the internal flatness, the exhaustion, the restlessness that feels like you're waiting in a room with no windows. These are not alarms. They are preparations. This is the sacred middle, the chrysalis stage of identity, the uncomfortable hush between old noise and new meaning. The season where the universe clears the stage, dims the background, removes the crowd, quiets the soundtrack, so you can finally meet yourself without the pressure of an audience. This is where you stop dragging your past into your tomorrow, where you stop expecting darkness to recycle itself, where you stop shrinking to fit spaces you were never designed to inhabit long-term, where you stop calling exhaustion loyalty or obligation passion or performance identity. This is where everything shifts shape, where the future stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like a pull, where solitude becomes a home, not a hiding place, where silence becomes grounding, not empty, where intuition becomes louder than fear, where you begin recognizing that the heaviness wasn't there to destroy you, but to stop you from running on emotional debt any longer. And even if you don't feel ready today, you will, because readiness is not a mood. It is a moment of internal consent, like this one, where you stop asking, "Am I enough?" and start whispering, "I will go anyway," because you were never walking alone. Every small step forward, even the shaking ones, activates unseen support. Every time you choose not to quit, something rearranges itself in your favor. Every breath you take in faith sends a signal to the universe that you are finally open to receive what you once begged for in silence. This is the moment your story turns. You are not here to fade into emotional fog. You are not here to collapse under the weight of confusion. You are not here to disappear into the quiet permanently. You are here to rise. Not in a loud way, but in a truer way. A way that rewrites the direction of your entire life. A way that doesn't burn out because it isn't forced. A way that doesn't need to perform to exist. A way that doesn't demand approval to feel worthy. The universe waited for you to be tired enough to stop resisting, soft enough to stop armoring, awake enough to stop numbing, quiet enough to finally hear yourself underneath the static. And what you heard, it wasn't emptiness. It was space being cleared. It was foundation being reset. It was your soul leaning forward. Your next chapter will not resemble your last. Your future will not wear your past's shadow. Your identity will not be built on borrowed fuel anymore. You are stepping into a life that has been prepared with your name stitched into it. A life that fits the size of your spirit, not the size of your fear. All that is required now is this: move forward, without demanding every answer in advance. Let the universe take the lead. Let God carry what feels too heavy right now. Let yourself be guided, not forced. Now place your palm on your heart. Feel the quiet pulse beneath the uncertainty, and type this declaration into the comments. I am ready to walk the path being prepared for me. And when you finish, share this with someone whose spirit may need to hear the same truth, because you never know whose world might tilt, soften, shift, or realign from that one gentle act of love. Sometimes transformation spreads not through explanation, but through resonance. Sometimes healing travels not through grand gestures, but through quiet recognition. And sometimes the words that change someone's life are the ones that simply say, "You're not done, you're becoming."